Fellow practitioners of man, welcome back to Manpractice today. I'm fired up, excited for the weekend, excited for a camping trip I got next week. Yeah. So what are we going to practice today? We're going to practice practicing, because I get asked this question a lot. Why do you call it man practice? That seems so silly. You need to practice being a man? And the truth is, yeah, for a large part of my life, I sucked at being a man, and I sucked at being me. So when the name got thrown out one day, I fell in love with the word practice being a part of it. Because don't I always have the option to practice something again? Don't I then always have the option to be a little bit better than I was the day before? I'd do a lot of practice at being me. I'd do a lot of practice at being a man. I hear a lot of things that are normally attributed to men as being considered hard or difficult or challenging. And to an extent, some of them can be. But let's boil this down real simple, because a lot of times when I really unpack that with another man, what I'm actually hearing them say is that it's complicated. The story that they have in their mind of what it's going to require to solve whatever the thing is in their life is complicated. And that complicated gets equated to hard. And I get it, because when things are complicated, it requires a lot more effort, a lot more energy, a lot more focus, and just overall can be a lot more draining. And so we can have complicated and hard, or we can have simple and hard. So if things are going to be hard, I'm going to at least choose the version of hard that I get to volunteer for. Because I'm always choosing what I'm doing, right? I'm always choosing what's in my life and what's not in my life. So let's break this down real simple. How do I define practice? There's two key components. There's repetitions and there's intensity. Much like when I go to the gym and lift weights. I'm doing curls, right? There's repetitions, and then when that weight gets too easy, then I go get the 30-pound dumbbells instead. And then I can increase the intensity. Or I can focus a little tighter and really squeeze on that muscle. There's a number of things you can always do to increase the repetitions or increase the intensity of your practices, regardless of what it's going to be. There are a lot of things that I just didn't want to face with respect to sucking at being me. Because when I tell people I sucked at being a man and I sucked at being me, they get confused and they're like, well, why are you being so self-deprecating? And I'm like, let me be clear to you where I was actually at. There was a point in my life where I sucked so bad at being me that I ended up homeless on the streets dying of a drug addiction. That's me sucking at being me. There was a point in my life where I sucked so bad at being a father that the state of Texas did not allow me to know where my son lived. There was a point in my life where I sucked so bad at existing in this body that it had ballooned up to almost 300 pounds, and I had to do that thing where you hold your breath and hope you don't pass out from asphyxiation while you're just trying to tie your shoes every morning. There was a point in my life where a woman told me that she was going to break up with me because I was so bad in bed. The truth is, I sucked at being me, and in every one of those situations I got to choose what was harder. Continuing with the same path I was on, or going through the difficulty of solving that solution. Now those can be very daunting tasks if you don't have the proper blueprint. Those can be very daunting tasks if you don't have the right information. They can be very daunting tasks if you're just taking a shot in the dark every time trying to figure it out yourself. And that's part of what I created this for, is anything that I have historically sucked at has felt hard. Anything that I have historically sucked at has felt difficult. Anything that I have historically sucked at has felt like something I don't want to do. And then once I learn how to do something, once you learn how to do something, doesn't it almost become fun? Doesn't it become delightful? When you start seeing results at the gym, when you understand how to work out, how to eat proper macronutrients, doesn't then physical fitness and nutrition almost become a fun game that you get to play with yourself to see what kind of results you can get? Sure, there are certain days where it may be a little harder than other depending on what's going on, There are some mornings I get up at 4 or 5 and I'm not just like fired up like I am right now to go to the gym, but I still go do it. Because of all the other days I haven't missed, it's just ingrained in me. Why? Because I've practiced with repetition and intensity. Repetition and intensity. You know how it's easier to not pick that snack up right now? Because I've practiced so many times now not picking up that snack. Repetition and intensity. Repetition and intensity. And I know what you're thinking. It still sounds hard. But what you really got to start looking at is what is it costing you to stay where you're at? And in the long run, not practicing you, not becoming the best version of you, how hard is that going to be? And I'm not even saying with present day right now. Just pick the top 3 things that are hard for you right now. And fast forward 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. And imagine the compounding effect on each one of those items a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. What happens right here, right now, if you don't address your physical fitness and your nutrition and you stay at the same weight that you're at? What does that look like for you a year from now, 3 years from now? Are you even still here 5 or 10 years from now? Or have you kicked the bucket because you're morbidly obese and you died of diabetes or had to have your foot amputated or you had a heart attack? Do the same thing for being a role model, superhero father. What does that look like if you don't address that right now? And I get it. You got a wife, you got kids, house to take care of, full-time job. But what does it look like for you to not show up fully as a father? And those of you that aren't doing that, you're probably the same men that I hear talking about, my kid's an asshole or my kid's an idiot. And the reality is you just don't know what to do. You just haven't taken the actions yet. So it's going to be harder a year from now if you don't really step up and model the behavior that your kids should be modeling. What happens 3 years from now? 5 years from now? What happens when you're standing over a bed and you're looking down at your 22, 23-year-old son and he's in 5-point restraints and they're keeping him sedated and they've got him on life support with all those tubes and everything down his throat because he didn't have the man that he always needed in his life to show up for him and he ended up overdosing or trying to kill himself. You know, that was me at 23. That's what happens when children don't necessarily get all the things that they need. Now let's be clear, I take full responsibility for every one of those drugs that I put in my body. I'm not blaming my family. I'm not blaming my parents. I love my parents. My dad gave me everything he had. He worked his ass off. And even after that, earlier this year, he came back to me and apologized for the things that he couldn't give me. And said that he wanted to find a way to make it right. And I said, that's great, Dad. Like, there's plenty of time. Don't worry about this. We'll figure it out, you know? That woman that raised my son when the state of Texas wouldn't allow me to see him or know where he lived. You know, a few years after all of that, when I started getting things together and becoming the man that I should have been, you know, she seemed a little upset one day and I checked in with her to see why, because as far as I knew, no more harm had been caused. There was no more bullshit going on. Everything had been cleaned up and squared away and the dust had been settled and we both kind of moved on in our own directions. And you know, I just asked her, I said, you seem a little upset, are you mad? And she responded with, yeah, I am mad. I'm bitter right now. And I said, would you be willing to share with me why? And she said, it's because you've become the man that I always knew you could be, and I'm not there to get the benefits of it. That was a woman who was terrified for her life. I literally left her and my son homeless shortly before I got locked up because I accidentally set the house on fire. That was the kind of father I was. So some of you that are saying things are too hard right now, the likelihood is maybe you've never even seen adversity, or you don't know what real adversity even is. And I'm not doing that to shit all over whatever version of problems you have is. I'm just saying, stop making excuses. I really don't give a fuck about them. If I can go from where I was to where I am now, you literally don't have any excuses. You can find a way. Now, it's possible you're still following an improper blueprint. It's possible you're still taking shots in the dark instead of seeking help from someone that's gotten superior results in those areas that you're really struggling with. You know, after that woman told me that she was going to break up with me for being so bad in bed, like, that hurt. God, that hurt. Just like, you know, and I could have continued making excuses, and earlier on I was making excuses for it. You know, trying to shift the blame, trying to do anything to not look at that, and I get it. And then finally one day I just vowed. I vowed to myself, I said, we're going to fix this once and for all. Like, I don't ever want to have to hear that from another woman again. Like, that was brutal. It was painful. So I don't know what your exact situation is, but I can guarantee you I've probably gone through a similar version of it. And I can guarantee you there is a way out, there is a solution for you. There are going to be times that are hard, but they don't have to be overly complicated. It's actually pretty simple. Once you really start to dive into what you want, why you want it, the man that you truly want to be, that you know in your core you deserve and that your people deserve, once you get clear on that, it's almost like the universe just lines up and the pieces just start falling together. The people just start showing up in your world to make all those things happen, and maybe I'm one of those people. And maybe I'm not. And even if I'm not the right guy, my request of you is to get help from somebody. If nothing else, if all you got from this was some clarity and some momentum and you're fired up, at least go use that to go hire the person that you know can and will help you solve the problem that you're currently facing. So, if you're ready to go all in, if you're ready to bet on yourself, invest on yourself, and if there is no longer a plan B, there's contact information below on how you can reach me, and we can have another conversation to ensure this is going to be a good fit on how we can get your life a little more simplified and you well on your way to becoming the man that you always needed. If you'd like a little more information on what that's going to look like and what that entails, and you just don't quite feel clear yet, there's going to be a link right up here, and it's going to help clarify some of that stuff. It's going to give you some details. It's going to ask you some questions, and if you honestly answer those questions, then by the end of the video you should have some more clarity as to whether or not it's going to be a good fit for you. So, as always, I have much appreciation for y'all showing up for yourself and for showing up for me. I absolutely adore getting to practice with you guys each and every time we hop on here. Whether it's virtually on here or in our in-person Wednesday meetup group, it makes my heart swell. And I get a little teary-eyed talking about some of these things, so... When's the last time you practiced being you? When's the last time you practiced being a man? I love you guys. Catch you next time.